All right, folks, very important video. In this video, we're going to talk about bloat and how it's the #1 killer of large breed dogs. And this is not just applicable to large breed dogs. This can happen to any dog at any age of any size. It is more prevalent in larger barrel-chested dogs, such as Great Danes, but it can happen to Cane Corsos, German Shepherds, Labradors, Golden, any dog. Bloat can happen, and in this video, we're going to explain to you what bloat is, the signs of bloat, and how to prevent it. So stay tuned, and we'll talk more about it in the episode. So let me explain to you first what bloat is. Bloat can come in a few different forms, but the best way for me to explain it is to show you this. Let me switch sides here. We're going to represent this as the type of food that you could be feeding your dog, and this isn't even that much food. And we're going to show you how when you feed the dog the food, we're just holding it here in this Ziploc to contain it, but if you put it and the dog eats it and it ends up in their stomach, obviously that's where the food goes when they eat it, their stomach is shaped a lot like a hammock. All right, it sits this way in their body. And if they have a stomach full of food and after they eat, that stomach is sitting in there from at least 60 minutes. And if you go out and play fetch with them or take them on a walk or they romp around or they roll around on the ground, this is what's happening inside their chest cavity. And if they jump too high or roll around on the ground, the stomach will cinch itself. It'll literally flip inside of them. And there's no alarm bell that goes off. There's no sound that your dog will make. It's happening inside the body. They have no idea that it happened. The problem is once it's cinched off, the gases inside the stomach are going to start to expand. The food is not able to move on into the small intestine, and within about an hour or two, the stomach's going to swell up and actually rupture inside of their chest cavity, which is going to cause a life-threatening, they're going to die, period. Unless you are at the vet's office the moment that rupture happens, there's going to be no way to save your dog. It's a horrible way to die. So I'm very adamant about talking about bloat because my police dog, Big Papa Thor, died from it when he was about 9 years old. And the way it happened with him is, as is typical, we're feeding him late at night because after we feed him, it's time to rest. They need to rest for at least 60 to 90 minutes minimum before they go out and do any activity whatsoever. So what do? We fed him. We let him rest, but maybe it'd been about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We say, let's let him go outside and use the restroom. The problem is while he was outside using the restroom, somebody or something like a raccoon or who knows what was bothered him along the fence line, and he ran over to the fence line to investigate, and as he's running and jumping, the stomach must have flipped because maybe 45 minutes later, we're trying to go to bed, and here comes one of the warning signs of bloat. He's panting and restless, just walking and walking and walking. And that's very atypical for him at that time of night. He should be going to bed, and he just he can't get comfortable. And he's just getting down, getting up, walking. The other sign that you'll see is dry heaving, or them trying to throw up but nothing's coming up. I try to demonstrate what that looks like, but it's pretty gross, but you get the idea. It's almost like they're coughing, nothing else is coming up. That's another warning sign of bloat. I thought about it for a minute. I said, this is really not normal for him to act that way. And I thought about when did I last feed him and what happened in the 30 minutes to an hour after I fed him. That's right, he was jumping and barking at something at the fence line. I said, oh man, he's got bloat. So quickly threw him into the car, raced over to the vet's office. It's past midnight at this point. We get to the vet's office. In the 5 or so minute drive it took me to get him to the vet's office, Thor, who we always maintain a healthy weight on, blew up. It looked like he gained 50 or 60 pounds in 5 or 10 minutes. He looked like the girl from Willy Wonka. I mean, completely swelled up like the blueberry girl. And that's exactly what had happened is his stomach had got cinched and the gases were expanding. And we got him to the vet in time that they were able to aspirate him, but then they had to perform emergency surgery, and something called necrosis had already set in, and that's where the circulation has been cut off, and now blood flow is not getting to the organs the way it's supposed to, and all this tissue is starting to die. And so, long story short, Big Papa Thor did not make it. So it happens all of the time, all of the time. So the moral of the story is, after you feed your dogs, put them up and rest. And now I'm going to show you a further example of how you can make the situation worse. So a lot of us are feeding our dogs kibble. This is not a discussion on what you should or should not feed your dog, but this is what can happen and how kibble can potentially be a problem because kibble basically dries your dog out. They eat the kibble and just sucks the moisture out of them. Most dogs after they eat kibble are super thirsty. How thirsty? This is a typical size dog bowl, not even filled up all the way. And let me show you what happens when they drink an entire bowl of water, or in this case a half a bowl of water, and you add that to not even a large amount of kibble. Look how much weight is now sitting in their stomach, and water is heavy. So now this just went from the kibble being, I don't know, less than a pound. We're talking about 5 pounds of weight here, adding that water in there. And it just exasperates everything, amplifies everything. We're back into the stomach now. And let me show you how easy this is to flip with all that weight in there. Just walking along, and oh, let me roll over and you scratch my tummy. Or let me chase after that Frisbee. You have a major problem on your hands. You have, again, about 2 hours minimum, or maximum I should say, to get them to the vet and get them cut open. Very expensive emergency surgery. You're talking $4,000 or $5,000. By all means, you can feed them kibble. One of the suggestions is to float the kibble, meaning pre-soak the kibble right before you feed it to them. That way the dog is not horribly thirsty after they drink, and you're monitoring the amount of water that's going into their system, because you're literally doing like I did. You can kind of pre-pour it. Now that's a ton of water. I wouldn't mix it that way. You don't want to make a soup. You just want to pre-moisten the kibble. And if your dog's still thirsty after eating, I'm not saying you can't give them water, but don't give them don't let them drink and drink and drink and fill up their stomach beyond this. And again, the best thing you can do is put them in the crate after they eat. Make them rest. Puppies and dogs alike tend to get super frisky after they eat, and that's the last thing you want, is them rolling around in the grass, the living room, the backyard. Put them up. Minimum 60 minutes, preferably 90 minutes to 2 hours before you go out and now start playing with them. So that applies for breakfast, lunch, and or dinner. There are some benefits to feeding raw. It just goes back to the water situation. Dogs don't get quite as thirsty eating a raw diet because there's a lot more moisture in the food. Again, but this conversation is, they can get bloat on raw just as easily. And try not overfeed or stuff your dogs, because again, you start to fill up that stomach so big, it's a lot easier to flip or for more gases to expand and cause a problem. One of the things you can do to help prevent bloat, or pretty much stop it altogether, is if your dog ever needs surgery for anything whatsoever, I forget the name of it, but they basically staple the stomach to the side of the inner side of the chest cavity, and that keeps it from flipping. So they do that preventatively on Great Danes and other very large breed dogs, because it's, man, I don't know what the numbers are, but if you got a Great Dane, the chances of your Great Dane getting bloat is super high. So anyways, be very careful, be very cognizant of it. It is preventable, or at least there's a lot of things you can do to prevent it or try to keep it from happening. Again, don't overfeed your dogs. Don't let them drink a ton of water after they eat. And most important, rest them for about 2 hours. And I think we about covered everything. So thank you guys very much for watching. I know this wasn't a fun and exciting video, but it's a very important one. And make sure to comment below. Give us your experience on bloat. We posted this on TikTok just a few days ago, and it got a ton of views and a lot of people commenting about their very close or near-death experiences, and actually many situations where the dog didn't make it, just like my dog. So take it as a warning sign, and just be very careful. And in the meantime, love your dogs and enjoy them. Just rest them after you feed them. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you all in the next video.